Hi, I'm Amanda Pearson and welcome. Today I'm at the Perry Hotel here at the Tigress Restaurant and I am delighted to be here with Chef Dale Talde and founder of Food Crush Hospitality Group and the food and beverage partner here at the Perry Hotel. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to you.
Thank you so much.
I've been in this space plenty enough.
This is my second time here, and I know the first thing that I shared with you is that I want to come back for my birthday because it is now, don't hold it against me, Naples, one, if not my favorite restaurant in Naples.
Thank
and
you
I say
very
that
much.
very genuinely.
Thank you very much.
It's incredible. So I'm delighted to be with you here today, and I first want to know what inspired you in your early career, especially with your Filipino-American heritage. How did that impact you?
As an immigrant, son of immigrants, I feel like eating well is a birthright for us. So it was a lot of home cooked meals. It was a lot of, we're not eating out. I made food at home. Because your parents are always kind of looking for a taste of home. So my mom cooked a lot. We had a garden. The influence was of my family. We ate well all the time. My mom was a fabulous cook. When you're a kid, you yearn for things like you see your friends eating pizza and pasta and fast food, and you're like, why can't I have that? But in our household, my mom cooked almost every meal. So in hindsight, right, you're blessed that you have someone cooking for you. And I think that was a really big influence. My mom loved food. We watched a lot of food TV, like the early years of Food Network. A lot of Martin Yan and Julia Childs, and so we watched a lot of food TV together. And I think that's really what was a lot of the early inspiration of being a chef.
So I'm curious, at what point did you start getting in the kitchen yourself?
Kind of that spoiled brat. My mom would make things that nowadays I love. So like a sour tamarind soup with fish and like long beans and bok choy and tomatoes. It was just like this, it's called sinigang. And my mom had made it, and I wasn't feeling it. And my mom's an RN. She worked overnight shift, and can you imagine your kid being like, I don't want to eat what you made for dinner? And she's like, I'm not cooking for you. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make apple pancakes. Read the back of the box recipe and was like, this ain't that hard. And that's probably one of the first things I remember making myself pancakes for dinner. Because my mom was like, I'm not making you any more food.
Not a short order cook, you can make it
Yes,
yourself. So
exactly right. We're not taking orders here in this household. I'm making dinner and you're eating it.
I think we need to have a new recipe on the menu now, apple pancakes.
Yes.
I'm here for that.
The original dish that started it all.
So in addition to your mom, who were some of your biggest culinary influences?
I was really lucky to be in an amazing food city. So I'm born and raised in Chicago. Out of culinary school, I went to culinary school, Culinary Institute of America at CIA in Hyde Park, New York. And I went back to Chicago to start cooking and worked with some amazing chefs, right? I opened Vong with John George Von Gerichten. That was my first professional kitchen. So I would say that like John George has a real heavy influence in my food. Such bright, light flavors, really tasting things I'd never, ever had before. So she's like a 20-year-old cook. But as I got older, I started working. Carrie Nahabedian, who actually introduced me to Naples. Her family has had a house here. Carrie and Michael Nahabedian their family has been coming to Naples and Marco Island for 30, 40 years. But Carrie and Michael really helped me define kind of my cooking style. This idea of, eating local, eating seasonally, and knowing where your food comes from, like knowing the farms. So that really, I had never, as a kid, like never really thought of food in that manner. So they really helped define a lot of my cooking style and influence my style. Also, I worked at a grocery store. It was my first job as a kid. Probably like I was a bagger and a checker, and then so when you're working in a grocery store, you start to identify food because you have to, right? Jalapenos are this code, cilantro is this code, and then you start to understand cultures. When it was Christmas time, you see a lot of like Mexican families buying masa and pork shoulder and red chilies, and you're like, what are they making? And then you realize, hey, they're making tamales for Christmas. So I think just being in Chicago and some of those chefs that I worked for, and obviously my parents, my mom, and my family. I mean, my mom was one of 13, and a lot of her sisters were in Chicago. So Christmas was this potluck of amazing food. So credit that side of the family for really influencing, because it was my introduction into like, what are all these amazing flavors and foods?
Right. I've never thought about that. To work at a grocery store to see the food coming in, that's pretty fascinating. I like that.
You see food and you see cultures, right? You wonder why, these Indian families are only, they're buying a lot of dairy and only vegetables, and you're like, oh, they're vegetarian, and they're making paneer, or they're making ghee. They're buying so much butter because they make ghee, and it's like, it makes sense later in life, but at the time when you're like 15, 16, you're just kind of like, putting in codes for chilies and stuff and vegetables, but it helps you identify food, and that's kind of like, you get interested and start being curious about food in that way.
That's fascinating. Fun fact, I just had paneer last week, and my husband's like, what's paneer? It's delicious. It's what it is.
It's cheese. It's cottage cheese, pressed cottage cheese, and it's a staple in Indian households.
I love it. So from Top Chef to a variety of other incredible experiences, what would you say are some of the most defining moments, if not the defining moment for you in your career?
Yeah, definitely Top Chef was one of those, life-altering experiences. I mean, a lot of eyes on you, a lot of life lessons, a lot of friendships kind of forged through being on something like Top Chef. But I think one of the most defining thing that I've gone through in my career is establishing Food Crush Hospitality with my wife, and learning that I'm good enough to do it ourselves. I had partners in a past partnership in restaurants, and at the time when you're younger, you don't realize that like you have the skill set to do this, and you kind of lean on other people. You say, I'm a chef, I'm in the kitchen. No, you're a restaurateur. Through your experience, you've done a lot. Credit another one person, Steven Starr, who has a gazillion restaurants up and down the East Coast. He was one of my first kind of bosses and mentors. And watching how he moves really helped influence me. But you realize that when you're working in hospitality, if you're doing it right, you're working without blinders, right? You're absorbing everything, right? From how tables are set to service to the bar to the actual food. Food was always the easiest part, so maybe that's why I gravitate towards it. But that was a real defining moment for me, understanding that I'm good enough to do this. And then, through working and opening my first restaurant as Food Crush Hospitality in Westchester, New York, in Tarrytown, getting Esquire magazine's best restaurant in 2020, and then getting a James Beard nomination. I think those were obviously like really important parts of, it's amazing. You don't do this I don't do it specifically for the accolades. But when the accolades come in, and I'm never a person that sits and reflects about things. I'm always like trying to keep it moving, trying to go forward with things. But you look at the work that you've done and you go, wow, that's someone else thought enough that, what we did was special and deserves some accolades, and that's fun and cool, and it's great for everyone to kind of, when you sit back and look at it and go, wow, we've really accomplished a lot here.
That's fantastic. I love that. So how about you know, being an Asian American chef and breaking into the culinary scene, did you ever face any challenges?
Yeah, of course. When you're an Asian American chef, especially at the time I started doing this, like listen, I'm not going to say I'm super long in the tooth, but I am 46 and I started cooking professionally cooking when I was 20. So 26 years of experience. A lot of times I think what we look at is it's very fast and it's a young person's game, right? It's a young person's game. But I didn't have the blueprint, or I didn't have someone who forged a way for us. Like a lot of times now, I think younger Asian American chefs can see the way that other chefs have done it. Myself, Roy Choi, David Chang, and I'm not saying I'm those people, but you look at the way those chefs have done it, and you can kind of say, okay, that's my career path. I want to follow in their footsteps. I didn't have that when I was growing up, right? No one looked like me in the kitchen, right? Kitchens I was in, no one looked like me. There was few and far between chefs that were kind of in the spotlight that you could model your career after. Someone who I really credit is Roy Choi, David Chang. There's a chef named Romy at Purple Yam at one of the earlier Filipino chefs. Filipinos especially were kind of behind the scenes guys, not in the forefront. So I think the challenge is that forging your own path and kind of navigating that path. That was the hardest part. How do I make sense of this all, and how do I get from point A to point B to C and D, right? But when you start to see a lot of those chefs like David Chang and Roy Choi do it on their own terms, that's when you're like, okay, I'm gonna follow that. Because it's inspiring, it's delicious, and they're successful. So I think that was some of the hard parts, is that whenever you turn on a TV, like you saw Martin Yan, right? And you wanna be like him. But for us, it's just like, we didn't see a lot of people that look like me in kitchens.
It's so interesting to me to think that even it sounds simple. You just saw someone who looked like you doing what you wanted to do. And I reflect upon that when it comes to mentorship. And I'm, curious, how do you approach that now? Are you involved in any mentorship because of what you had?
100%. I think every time you step into a kitchen, and and in one of my kitchens, it's an opportunity to mentor. It's an opportunity to grab someone and say, hey, you know what, like, I see how you're doing it. Maybe trying it this way might yield better results, might make you a better professional. But, I think it's, whenever you're in a restaurant setting, especially in an opportunity like this, right, it's a exchange of information that happens, right? We have an amazing team here, and thinking that you know everything is a downfall, right? You're always looking for opportunities. Like, the team here they live in this community, right? So there's a lot of them telling me, like, hey, chef, you know what, like, here are the slow seasons, here are the busy seasons, here's what's available at the farmer's market now, here's what I can get really fresh and great. There's a local fisherman that goes out named Dilly that, a lot of my chef friends around here introduced me to, that we have conversations with the chefs and say, hey, what can we get from him that is like cool and fun, and more importantly, like, we know where our food comes from. So it is mentorship, my mentorship of like my years of experience kind of creating concepts, but also like they give me just as much, from the coffee guys downstairs. When I first wake up, it's the first thing, I make a beeline for the coffee shop here and try to understand, what they're going through and what the experience is, and they tell me, hey, it's a little slow, or it's super busy, or I'm not a barista, so I take from them as much as I can give to them, like, hey, I think, maybe this is where we should put X, Y, and Z. So definitely mentorship when you walk into a space, but it's a give and take, and I think I relish in the opportunity of being able to share information and take someone and give them my point of view. And I always say, like, listen, if you like the path that I've gone in, I'm an open book. Ask me anything you want to know about things. but it's also with, you know, the food and with the man with ownership here and giving them. That's my kind of my role, right? Is to, hey, offer my suggestions as to what I think could happen here and what the possibilities are in this amazing property. That's my role, is to kind of say, hey, I think we can do really cool pop-ups. We can do really fun activations here that are based around food and beverage.
So that's the perfect segue into the next question of new dishes. So you're known for bold flavor, cultural fusion. What does that process look like for you when you're about to create a new dish?
You know, I think when I look at creating new dishes, right, it starts with kind of what does our guest want? It never starts with me, and I think as a young cook, it started with what I'm into. What do I want? And then it really moved into what does your guest want? Because I think the greatest thing you can do when you open a restaurant is understand that this restaurant doesn't belong to any of the people who are here, ownership included, right? It does belong to them on paper, right? But who does this restaurant, what is this property, who does this belong to? It belongs to the guest. This is your guest property. So whether they have a room here, or they're enjoying the pool for an afternoon, they're eating dinner here or enjoying the view at the bar, for that period of time, this belongs to them. And your goal is to give them what they would like, right? And it's our job to kind of steer them and guide them. But it really starts with, for me, you know, what does the guest want? What's the guest looking for? And then identifying that, like, oh, you know, they're asking for a fish dish. Great, let's work on a fish dish. But then where does it start? It starts with sourcing. Where are we getting the fish from? What's in season? What's beautiful? What's local here, right? So like piggybacking on the conversation with the local fisherman who goes out and has literally day boat grouper, day boat snappers, day boat stone crabs. That is how you build food. You know, what's in season. It doesn't start with, you know, it starts with what's available and what's delicious, and then you build a dish around that. So for me, that's kind of, it's, yeah, you know, as you get older, you start a progression of like how and where dishes come from, and then you start to understand that you aren't really cooking for, you want to make something that I generally like to eat, right? Fits the brand, fits the concept that I think is delicious, but it's also what does your guest want? What is your guest? What are they looking for?
Fascinating. It's funny to think that I never thought about it that way. I thought certainly you're thinking about this is what I do and this is what they're going to love. But, you know, it's interesting too, even if you're having people over in your home, you're cooking for your guests. What do they want? What are their desires? And
yeah, it's hospitality,
yeah.
Right? Hospitality. It's really, hospitality is about just, you know, really giving somebody what they want, when they want it, and them not having to ask for it. I think that's really what hospitality is, and understanding the needs of your guests and your clientele is true hospitality.
I love the call out to Dilly's several times. I love that you know that.
His fish is phenomenal. I think the more you can get in tune with where your food comes from, the better your food's gonna be. And that's the goal of a chef, right? Is to produce really, right? At the end of the day, this is a business, but as a chef, at the heart of it, right? It's just producing phenomenal food, delicious, phenomenal. You know, we are in a quest for delicious. That's it, right? The quest as a chef, especially as a younger chef, it's this quest for delicious. And then trying to figure out how it fits and how you can make it profitable and then for me, that has been a really big part of my maturity as a chef and as a restaurateur is don't start off with, is this gonna be great for business? Is this gonna be great? Like, is this gonna be good for our margins? No, start with delicious and figure it out.
If that's not your tagline, I think it needs to be in the quest for delicious.
The quest for delicious and the best, right? It has to start with that. The best wine, the best beverage, the best produce, the best fish, the best proteins, the best meats. You have to look for that and then figure out, and then backtrack and figure out how to make money out of it.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, oh, this is on sale, I'm gonna run a special, or this is cheap right now. No. It has to start with the best and then work your way back from that.
Build something great and they will come.
Especially in a market like Naples,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. especially in a market like Naples, where there are some really discerning palates here, and people can get. I'm really happy to be part of an amazing food community. There's phenomenal food here, great chefs, you know, Bicyclette Cook Shop, you know, my buddy Gerald, who's at a country club, but like he's the one who kind of steers me in these amazing places to eat and drink, right? Chartreuse, that's in Bonita Springs, like what an amazing cocktail bar that is. And then El Gran Taco Loco, like right next door to it, that's like this amazing taqueria. Like these like gems of Southwest Florida, they exist already here. And there's like really amazing food, and I'm just really happy to be part of a community that appreciates it and wants more.
I love hearing you say that. I love hearing your perspective that we have a fantastic food community.
You do.
Love that.
You do.
So when it comes to food and Asian cuisine, what would you say is the most, in your opinion, underrated ingredient or dish that we should know about?
Here at the restaurant, or just in general, you know, I think that, you know, the staple for me is always going to be rice. You know, I grew up eating rice 3 meals a day, you know, 3 meal periods a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Rice was a fixture on the home. So I think that, you know, it's like a building block ingredient, right? It's one of those building block things that if you don't get the rice right, the meal falls apart. And that is, I to this day, kind of will base a lot of my dining experiences around, is the rice right? And it's one of the things where, like, if there's something that's going to get me a little bit, you know, not happy in my own kitchens, is if the rice isn't right. And it's like, hey, it's a building block foundation, right? It's like when you go to if you go to a French restaurant and the baguette is not right. If you go to a Mexican restaurant and the tortillas aren't right. How can the rest of the meal be good if this one ingredient is it? It'll ruin the entire experience. For me, that's my experience. So, yeah, I think that rice, simple white rice, when it's cooked properly, it speaks volumes of a place.
I want to have a whole lesson on how to cook white rice properly, but that's for another
Get a rice
episode.
cooker. Got to get a rice cooker.
Okay, that
Number
I don't
one.
have, so I'll get that.
Got to get a rice cooker.
All right, so then when it comes to being a restaurateur versus an entrepreneur,
Sure.
any lessons learned, anything different? What are your thoughts on
Man,
that?
you know, restaurateur versus what was it?
Entrepreneur.
Oh, so restaurateur versus entrepreneur. You know, I think they fuse together. You know, the restaurateur in you wants to give your guest the most and make sure that your guest gets the best possible experience. And the entrepreneur in you understands that this is a business, and that, you know, especially since the pandemic, you know, one of the things that I've held on to is that while the guest certainly believes they're always right, I'll say this, taking care of your guest is now secondary. If you take care of your employees and your team, then the guest will feel it exponentially.
Absolutely.
So if your team is well taken care of, if your team feels safe, if your team feels appreciated, and your team feels like they're part of the process, the guest will always feel that. They'll feel that that you're taking care of them. And I think that hospitality just isn't for the guests, right? Hospitality has to include your team. More importantly, you have to make your and that's big, because a lot of times when I started cooking, we forgot about that, or it wasn't even in the conversation, right? It was always about the guest. It was always about what they're feeling and what they want. You have to, for me, it really flipped during the pandemic, is taking care of your employees, because if you don't take care of your employees, you have nothing.
It reminds me a little bit, when I was in college, I did a little stint at the Ritz-Carlton, and I am so grateful for that experience. And I remember being trained that they are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And I always thought, wow, what a concept. And so I love that. And you have a great team here, as you've said. So
wonderful team, amazing ownership. It's just getting stronger. You know, we really, if you think about it, we're maybe only 20 something weeks old. It's not even that long of a time to be open. So there's a lot of room to grow. We went through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of growing pains, as all properties, new properties do, especially when you're 160 rooms and, you know, we have so much to offer here. We've really just scratched the surface of what the capabilities are here in this property. And, you know, that's part of my goal, and part of what I'm here for is to kind of open people's eyes to say, hey, yeah, that's a possibility. and let's push this.
Yeah.
Let's go. This property is a Ferrari that is on just in gear. We've just reversed out of our parking spot. We have a straightaway. We can do. We have so much more to push and go forward with. So we still have kind of like not pushed this thing to what its full capabilities are.
I believe that first because I've experienced it, but you've got amazing food, amazing restaurant, some of the best views in Naples. We were talking before that rooftop situations for the public are not that common here actually.
Sure.
So this is so very much appreciated. Amazing view if people haven't been here yet. And wow, there's just so much ahead. So when people come in here, what are you hoping? Because the vibe is a little different. So what are you hoping people will, that vibe that they are getting now, what do you hope for the future?
Yeah, for the restaurant, I hope that people, one, think it's delicious. That's kind of delicious from head to toe. That's kind of what our chef's goals are, right? And restaurateurs' goals is to make things delicious, whether it's delicious wine, delicious cocktails, delicious food. Hope that our service and hospitality are on par with that. Our service, our hospitality, and our food are on par with the view that ownership understood this would be. There's a fabulous view, and we want to match the food, the service, and the beverage to that. But I think fun. I am an adamant believer in fun, right? Is that when you're going out to eat, that things don't have to be super stuffy or super, just kind of buttoned up. This is a fun place. The bar, the Easy Tiger, the bar is an amazing place to have fun and enjoy yourself. And the food is, and the restaurant's equal to that. It's a boisterous, loud place, and and to me that means fun. When I open a door and I hear a place that's kind of like just vibrating with conversation and laughs, and I know that I'm in the right place. So I hope for that for the restaurant, and for the rest of the property. I hope when people get on to the property, that when they get to the pool downstairs, that it's equally as fun, that they're enjoying the view, that they make their way down to the river and can see that we're doing some really cool things with the boat landing down there, and that the lobby, we help transition our lobby into something that's really fun and cool too. Live music, coffee shop series down there with acoustic music, and different little pop-ups that are happening down at that coffee bar, because it's another opportunity for us to add something to Naples, especially when the coffee bar is open till until the afternoon. But after that, it's like turning that into some place where people want to congregate and have fun, as opposed to like, hey, maybe you don't want to be in such a busy, loud place like our Easy Tiger bar is known to be. It's a fun, boisterous place, and maybe that's not your vibe for the evening. Maybe you want something a little more toned down, more glass of wine and chill. We want to offer that at the lobby bar too, and down at the bodega pool, that it's fun and chill. There's fireplaces down there where you can kind of like escape and feel like you're in a different world. It's so cool and chill down there. And then get it popping when we need to.
I can't wait to experience the rest. I've only been to Tigress, so I can't wait to experience the rest. I will tell you, I'm definitely going to get some coffee. It's famous according to everybody here. So I'm getting some coffee in the shop on the way out. So can't wait to explore the rest. If we were to get back to just a little bit more on you with your personal experience, especially when it comes to Top Chef, which is a very unique experience. Not only have you been on Top Chef, but you've been involved in TV for 20 years?
Yeah.
So, how has that impacted you as a chef and your journey, and some lessons learned, things like that? That's not common for all chefs.
Yeah, being on TV, doing Top Chef, working with Food Network on shows like Chopped and, Guy Fieri's Guys Grocery Games, Tournament of Champions. It's amazing. I think what the greatest thing is that you get to meet amazing chefs that you would never be able to meet otherwise. But it definitely helps your perspective. It makes being on a competition cooking show makes you realize that the only thing that's really holding you back is you, because you get thrown into situations like, hey, ridiculous situations that would never exist otherwise. Like, hey, you know what? You should cater a 350-person wedding, and you have 24 hours to do it. And you're put on a team with people that you may or may not like, and you're like, we got to do this. So it makes opening things like a restaurant, yeah, they're so challenging, but there is a calmness to it, because you're like, listen, I've done way harder things than this. We have had time to do this. We have an agenda. We have a schedule. We know what's coming. And at the end of the day, when you open a restaurant and you open a hotel and a property like that, you really never know what's coming until it hits you in the face. But there are, you have this idea in your head that, like, I can do whatever it takes to get this restaurant done and to get this property open. You know what, I think it's a curse and a blessing sometimes, because I think sometimes as you get amazing exposure, right? People in the Midwest would never know who you are. All of a sudden, like, oh, I'm gonna go to Dale's restaurant in Naples because, you know, you saw me on Guys Grocery Games. But then there's also another side of it. I think in the professional world, sometimes you don't get taken as seriously as others because of it. And, you know, in the beginning, I kind of struggled with that a little bit in my career. Like, are people taking me as serious? And then I just realized, you know what? Who cares? Right. You know, you're having fun. It's great exposure. It's fun to do. And you meet really great people like Guy, and he's, you know, been just an amazing person in my life that's fairly recent. But, you know, you get to meet people like Tom Clicchio, Padma, Lakshmi, you know, Gail Simmons. You know, are with these people for an extended period of time. Anthony Bourdain, you know, God rest his soul. You know, like, you get to be around those people, and you can't help but be influenced by that. So, right. Very cool experience, unique, and it's still happening today, so I'm blessed.
That's awesome. How about if you weren't a chef? What would you be doing?
Oh, man. You know, if I wasn't a chef, I think I would be in some kind of teaching role. You know, on along the lines of mentorship, and, you know, I do think I can, you know, help. I like it. I also just kind of like mentoring and talking to people and helping them their way through things. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that, honestly, there would have been no other path for me. I live and I breathe restaurants. I live and breathe hospitality. It's my heart and soul. It's, you know, people see me on TV and I do that work, but really, it's about the restaurants. Right. It's really about the restaurants that I'm attached to and associated with and have. So, I love it. I love the challenge. I love meeting the people. I love creating, and it's not just food, right? It's creating experiences, and it's creating events and programming and all that stuff. It's so fun.
That's so great. I've always loved the saying, you know, when I've worked with kids, if you find a job that you love, you never work a day in your life. And so I love that you don't have an answer of what anything else that you would do, because you're doing exactly what you feel you were made to do and what you love. So kudos to that.
Thank you.
Because that's the goal in life, I think.
Thank you.
How about any other regions or cuisines that you might be interested in exploring when it comes to maybe what's next?
Oh my God. Like, you know, there's you know, follow us on social media, on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our website, because I have a lot of fun, cool pop-ups that I plan on doing here, bringing in guest chefs. But, you know, my wife's Korean, so I definitely want to do a Korean barbecue night here. You know, a ticketed event here at Tigress that's really leans into the Korean barbecue culture. I love Spanish food, so I think that there's definitely a Spanish pincho tapas opportunity here that I want to explore. You know, and pairing it up with like a wine dinner, like exploring Spanish wines and then exploring Spanish food. And that's how I really want to do this. Like, I love pairing food and beverage with things. So being inspired by things like, you know, there's a fantastic Italian, you know, wine purveyor that's coming out. Let's see how Italian food and Cantonese food can come together. Because for me, when I explain about Cantonese food, to me it is kind of like the most Italian of the regions of China. It's, you know, not super heavily spiced. It's really about the purity of the ingredient. So I love that that you can kind of blend those two together and make some kind of mashup. And then just kind of really exploring what, like, we are a Cantonese steakhouse. Where we can explore the meat program, whether it's Wagyu, it's domestic beef, whether it's, local cattle that's here in Florida that we can source that's phenomenal. Whether it's, something domestic or it's foreign, like, real A5 Wagyu coming from, Japan, and exploring what we can do with the cuisine that way. But also just, I have great friends who, you'll see them on TV all the time, either they're on Top Chef or on Food Network, who I want to bring in and say, hey, let's do a cool dinner here. Nice. And I think that's exciting because, when you ever get a person with a fresh set of eyes on a space and can kind of talk to you and walk you through like what they see here, it's so cool because it's their first time experiencing it. So like, hey, why don't we do paella at the pool as like a brunch thing? And you're just like, awesome, So
if people ever, because there's so much now, I'm like, when is that happening? So if people want to know when to find that, it's just follow the Perry Hotel.
Follow the Perry Hotel, follow Tigress and Easy Tiger Rooftop Bar on our social media handles. Check us out on our website. Check me out. I'm always kind of reposting and posting what we're doing here. And you'll find out kind of what we're doing. And it's exciting stuff. It's great work, but there's so much cool things on a property like this that we can do. So, keep an eye out for it.
You got a new follower in me for
Thank
sure.
you.
For you personally, I definitely. If people aren't following the Perry Hotel in Collier County, where I think they live under a rock because you guys have fantastic social media.
At Tigress Restaurant and Rooftop Bar.
Perfect.
Yeah, and on Facebook we're on that too. And yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that we are not stopping. This is phase 1, right? Get the restaurant open, get the bar open. Let's really start to crush the other parts of this F&B program, which is the bar downstairs, the coffee bar, the lobby, and the pool, and bodega pool.
Food crush it, if you will.
Yes, food crush it.
All right, so I've heard that you enjoy mentoring, you're interested in education. Let's think about, I was so impacted when you said earlier that it took just seeing someone who looked like you in the industry. So let's imagine we've got young chefs listening to you today. What's the last thing that you would end with? What would you tell them for young, inspiring chefs looking at you today?
Yeah, for any young and inspiring chefs that that are thinking of getting into this industry and this career is don't ever be discouraged with the word no. Use it as fuel. You'll get told no a lot. You'll get told no. You won't get accepted for jobs. You might not get accepted for internships. Everything happens for a reason, and your path is your own. And don't accept no, and just keep pushing. Because I think one of the most powerful things is persistence, right? And being able to kind of have a goal and set goals. What's tomorrow's goal is to be better than yesterday. What's 6-month goal is to be, I'm on Garde Manger, I want to work the wok station, I want to work hot apps, I want to work my way through this kitchen. And then serve 5-year goals, 10-year goals. And then where do you want to be? Envision yourself in those places and make it happen. Because I think that I don't mean this in a really weird way, but I envisioned my path.
Yeah.
No. And I had a lot of obstacles and a lot of hurdles, and I've been part of 11 restaurants in my past. Closed them all. You only need one. You only need to hit on one, and you only need to push forward for that one goal and that one time, and then it all happens for you. So don't let failures really define you. Just keep pushing and use it as fuel and use it as a learning experience. And this career can take you a lot of fun, cool places.
Manifesting is no joke.
It is 100%.
And kudos to you
Thank
for
you.
everything that you've accomplished in such a short time in your career. 20 years is not that long, plus 20 plus plus. And we're just thrilled to have you here in Southwest Florida. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for your imprint that you've left here with us. It was a pleasure to have met you and spoken with you today. And, you know, for everybody listening, stay tuned to everything that's happening here at the Perry Hotel in Naples.